Today we're going to talk about consistency in your squat setup. Your starting position and setup will almost always determine how you finish and execute the lift. Note, this will be based highly on the individual. Not all setups will look exactly like another person's. This is not one size fits all, so I highly suggest finding what works best for you and your individual style of technique, so that every time you approach the barbell, it is routine to you at this point where you're not thinking about it. I have worked with clients in the past that will send me videos to review, and they're different each week. Their setup is completely different because they saw something or someone told them something new. But which is okay to an extent, but once you find what works best for you, stick with that. There's no reason to constantly change the variables every week to your routine, no matter the lift. This will also be extremely helpful if you plan to compete. Going into a competition with an exact routine that you're not even thinking about when you approach the barbell is a really big component, and it will be less stress of trying to remember, oh, did I do this or that? I'm not sure what to do. So lots of benefits in keeping a consistent setup. This is a general rule of setup for most people, starting with the hips underneath the bar to unrack it safely, taking 1 to 2 steps back, and then adjust and settle as little as possible. Then we're gonna really fill that belly full of air, bracing 360 degrees, and then initiate the squat. These are the most common mistakes that I typically see. Unracking with an uneven foot positioning, taking way too many steps backward with the weight on, fidgeting your feet, arching while you take a breath, and raising the shoulders, moving the barbell instead of bracing into the belly. Breaking at the knee in the initial descent. Breaking at the hips at the initial descent. This next one, all commonly known as the stripper squat. And this is because as we come out of the squat, the hips are raising first instead of hips and shoulders at the same time. Here we have no control over the descent, and we're just dropping it like it's hot. So many things can go wrong here, and you can see I came forward on my toes and I lost balance. Let's go into a little bit more depth on how to brace properly in the squat. Now, you saw in the video of things not to do, how much I shrugged my shoulders, taking that breath in, and the barbell is literally moving. We want to completely avoid this. No matter your bar placement, once the bar is on your back, we want to ensure that it does not move again. And taking a breath through the chest, raising it, is gonna move the barbell. Lots of things can go wrong there. So, learning how to brace properly, which is a skill set that will take time, especially if you're a new lifter. It is not easy, and I suggest practicing with lighter weight before you go into heavier weight. We're gonna really take in that breath through the belly. You can watch as I take in that breath on each rep, my belly expands, and then I tighten, which is super stiffening of the spine. So I'm increasing that intra-abdominal pressure and stabilizing the trunk in a 360-degree radius. So I'm pushing out to the sides, I'm thinking about pushing out into my back. I'm basically creating a built-in belt. And then once you get to a point where you need to use a belt, this will really be an important component, because you're gonna know how to push out into the belt, which is gonna stabilize your spine and trunk even more. But that's a different topic. So once we have the bar placement, I take in that breath through the belly, I stabilize, I get tight. The only thing I'm thinking about moving next are my hips and knees. Do you break at the hips or the knees first? Now, you'll have a lot of mixed opinions from different coaches or trainers, but the general rule of thumb is breaking at the hips and the knees at the same time, because most people will overcompensate one or the other. So keeping a balance between the hips and the knees is a great way to start. And if you're more of an advanced lifter or have a certain style, some lifters, even personally myself, I will slightly sit into the hips a little bit more before I break at the knees, but it's so minor, it's very hard to notice unless you actually slow it down. But again, for safety and teaching the mechanics of the squat, hips and knees at the same time. Thanks so much for watching, and if you guys ever have any questions, always feel free to leave them in the comments and I would be happy to answer them.